This episode is about minutes 71 through 75 of Solo, a Star Wars story, which starts with the crew landing on Kessel and ends with L3 liberating a droid. Hello there, and welcome to Star Wars Music Minute, where we celebrate the music and sound of Star Wars 5 cinematic minutes at a time. I'm Christina Tan, you can call me Xanthi, and today is all about minutes 71 through 75 of Solo, a Star Wars story. I am really pleased to welcome Christina Ward to the show, a fellow composer who went to my school, and we probably haven't spoken since we were at Cal Arts together. Or, except when we reconnected and I was like, you should come on my show.
Absolutely. It's true, but the connection remains.
It does. And so today we're talking about this whole Kessel situation where the crew lands on Kessel. And so we all know where this is going. But before the whole, this scene itself doesn't focus on the Kessel run per se. It's more so like, well, you know what? Let me ask you, Christina, what sticks out to you about these minutes? Either like in the context, either story-wise or music-wise, because you're kind of jumping in here from like having never been on the show before.
Totally. Yeah, I have no idea what to expect, but yeah. So these minutes for me are about introduction and transition. So we've got the classic somebody saying something like, can't do this will be great as long as we stick to the plan, no improvising, like classic Star Wars intro moment there. And then we've got
you mean because it's so like full of itself, like everything will be fine?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, every time you hear that, it just immediately forebodes that things will not go as planned. But of course, it doesn't really make you feel like everybody's going to die or anything, for all we know. And yeah, and then of course there's just kind of the intro of how they arrive on the planet, what's going on with their fake storyline, their disguise, and
yeah.
yeah.
It's almost like A New Hope in the whole disguise thing, the whole and Chewbacca posing, Han and Chewie posing as slaves. And I guess that is a very Star Wars thing, like pretending that half the group is the in charge, or either the stormtroopers or whoever in charge, and then half the group is their servants or slaves.
Yes, that's a huge theme, and it's well mirrored here.
It certainly is mirrored. Theoretically, or technically, this came before A New Hope, so I guess they did it first here.
Good point.
Why don't we get into listening to some of these minutes so we can warm up our ears, get to talking about some of the music and sound.
Beautiful.
Awesome. All right. Here's the start of minute 71.
This is a precision job. Thermal vault will be on the lowest level, down where it's warm. The only way we're gonna pull this off is if everybody plays their part. Stick to the plan. Do not improvise.
Mining colonies are the worst.
Yeah, well, the worst is where the money is.
All right, people, time to shine.
Okay, before we transition into that, like where the music changes there, I'm curious, right off the bat, what do you think of the music? Like, just, you can go in any direction.
One, we've got that determined horn melody happening where it's like, we're going to have a plan, we're going to stick to the plan, and we're going to succeed. We're not going to get murdered by Crimson Dawn.
Can you hum the horn melody?
Make this happen. Oh, all I kind of could remember from it was kind of like a I'm more of a feeling driven.
Yeah, it's all good. Didn't mean to put you on the spot. I just wanted to make sure that we were talking about the same thing.
Also, it's like so far behind when he's saying like it's very quiet compared to the text, to the actual text at the time, which would be when he's saying, "This is a precision job. Everything has to go according to plan." And so it's like determined situation, and then a lot of silence for a minute, I think, when he says mining colonies are where are nasty,
Money.
and and bad is where the money is. Uh, and then that little beat kind of comes in where we're getting down to business right there
Yeah.
at the end. Got a little beat.
What do you think of that beat in the context of Star Wars? It seems pretty new to me, that kind of
Yeah, there
scoring.
have been more of this new grungy, gritty beat things happening, especially when it has to do with the Empire, especially when there's stormtroopers riding, doing their business. Uh, yeah, so
Grungy,
maybe
gritty.
that beat is kind of relating to how is this mining colony ran by the Emperor or by the Empire, or is it
It's a Pike
is
thing, but I
it
think
it's a Pike thing? Yeah.
but I feel like so many roads lead back to the Empire.
Right. Yeah, especially how yeah, I mean that's what's a good way to say it? Like I guess with Star Wars there's always the force of good and then the dark side and the I guess I call it the good side, the bright side.
The light side.
Um the light side, but they're both like light. I don't know. Yeah, the light side. And so um yeah, and the Empire is basically always ending up being a tool of the dark side, almost always. And yeah.
Even like the on the opposite end of the spectrum, like if we're talking about how all of these like subgroups, because this movie doesn't directly, it's not rebels versus Imperials directly. It's more like all these things downstream that ultimately feed into their respective sides. Like it's sort of, I mean, it's sort of, and I like when Star Wars does this. It's even the things that, even the people, the entities that think they're neutral or think that they're just in it for themselves or whatever, they often are feeding one side or the other, whether they're actually making that connection or not. Because even Han, who is like, Mr. I'm not a nice guy or whatever, Han does his time both serving in the Imperial Army, but also at the end, he ends up helping the rebellion. So like, even though this is not a movie about Imperials and rebels, it is also like at least
It
seeds.
is. It is absolutely. We've got Han with the connection to when he has the opportunity to officially join the seeds of the rebellion. But then at the end, we've also got Qi'ra, who thinks that she's just staying alive. And then she flies her ship to her boss, who ends up being, of course, Darth Maul.
Right.
And
Spoiler.
who is obvious. Yeah, I was like, I hope nobody's like watching. Are we allowed to give hardcore spoilers?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, but it's true. Like, and this whole movie, it doesn't. At only until the end does it really start relating those key bigger picture things. The whole time it's really about Han, how he feels, or every individual character, how they think they fit in to a big picture that they're pretty much unaware of.
Yeah.
They're so far down the ladder from the top players that they don't even have any idea what the ladder is looking like.
Totally. So if we go back to this music, okay, I'm going to go back a little bit so we hear that horn thing that you mentioned.
Down where it's warm. Only way we're gonna pull this off.
Now, was
is
it before
if
this, or?
everybody plays their part. Stick to the plan. Do not improvise.
Mining colonies are the worst.
I think it was.
Yeah, I'm not hearing a lot of horns
The
there.
worst is where the money is.
I'm hearing like some bass too, like some electric bass. Am I making that up? It's like,
Yeah, it's actually this is a really interesting group of 5 minutes also because more than soundtrack, it's like Foley. I would call it Foley, right? Yeah.
I don't know what you're
Or
gonna
Foley, like
sound design,
ambient sound design. Yes.
which I'm
Yes.
sure some of it might be Foley and some of it might not be.
Yeah, totally. So, because there's just a lot of machinery sounds, a lot of takeoff and landing sounds, a lot of button pushing, a lot of droids in the background, a lot of mining colony sounds in the background. It's a little overwhelming in terms of tons of stuff going on. And
Yeah.
then the soundtrack kind of just frames a little bit of our maybe how we're supposed to feel about some of these developments.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe that's why it's like the soundtrack here is not very active. It is more like kind of just going on a groove. I don't know, like if you would say the same thing, but it feels groovy.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if we hear that
Yeah,
horn.
definitely.
Thermal vault will be on the
Oh, that's what you
lowest
mean.
level, down where it's warm. Only way
Yeah,
we're
okay.
gonna pull this off is if everybody plays their part.
So that's the gang
Stick to
motif.
the plan. Do not
Dee,
improvise.
dee, 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 dee. Yeah, and it's oh, I love it. You're taking notes while you're while
Oh, of
you're
course.
that's amazing.
I would never not take notes.
um,
Yeah.
So, listeners, you can find this segment of music at the beginning of the track called Oksana Florin, Yada Yada Yada, 4M30A. That's on the deluxe version of the soundtrack. So, yeah, that starts with the gang motif, which we've heard a ton throughout this movie, and it's, associated with Beckett and the gang, basically, it's exactly what it sounds like.
Nice.
Okay, so where we stopped earlier, that's when they're about to land on Kessel, and the music kind of abruptly changes, or it abruptly changes, which we'll hear in a second. And so let's listen to that change and then talk about what's happening there, because I think it's very interesting. Okay.
The worst is where the money is.
All right, people, time to shine.
Right here. I have to ask you, what do you think of that?
Man, again, it's a little, there is still this feeling of fighting all the background sounds and the sound design, but there's this nice sensation of like the good people are entering the atmosphere and the strings are going to herald their arrival with a and then it's just what I heard there was just kind of like string section still managing to make it through the space sounds. Personally, that's what I heard.
Yeah, what I'm hearing there, like hardcore, is Elgar Variations.
Ooh, yeah, I can get that. Yeah,
I think it's like, well, okay, let's talk while it's happening, because I think it might make more sense. Well, first, let me just say, like, the vibe of it also, like, just in general, reminds me of like that crop of British composers, Elgar, Britten, something about, like, it also reminds me of like Young Person's Guide to the Orchestra, which actually, let me play a clip of that. Okay, let's see. I should probably have found. It might be this, like, maybe it's the snare, maybe it's like kind of Baroque sounding too.
yeah,
The-
like nodding.
It's like the trumpet melodies too,
and a little military vibe. It's got a bit of a militaristic thing because of the snare and the very clear sticking to the beat situation.
Yes, and the strings, like, in a unified sort of. I don't want to say that they're necessarily playing the melody, but they're not. I don't know. I don't even know. Okay, so I don't know how to describe it. It's just like the vibe of it feels it feels like something. I'll just say that. And then the Elgar Variations, I would say, oh gosh, the Elgar Variations are so long. So, like, when does this even happen? It's a good question. I'm just picking a random spot. Okay, so that wasn't like a particularly representative spot, but you were hearing the strings a little bit, like, in doing their thing, and like sevenths. Okay. We're just doing random needle drops here. I swear I'm onto something. I'm onto something. Listeners are probably just like, what the hell is going on here?
We're on a search. Bear with us.
We're on a search. Because it's sometimes, I feel like it's very common, whether you're a musician or not. I feel like even more so if you're not a musician, where you just feel things that vibe similar to something else and you don't know why. And then so it's kind of like a hunt. And
our brains naturally make these connections, but it's hard to
totally
pinpoint.
Well, let's listen to Oksana Flora yada 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 again, or like actually just where we were in the minutes, and see if okay, here we are.
Time to shine.
Okay, we're back to the minutes. Like this could be Elgar. The dotted rhythms. You hear it, right?
I hear it. I totally hear it. And you know what you were saying, like there's something that the strings are doing. Like what is that thing? Maybe what it is that they're really unifying with the maybe with the brass section, or they're being used in a kind of a brassy way where it's all about that delivering this kind of heartfelt melody that's moving along, and it's not so much about tons of timbral differences occurring.
That's a big thing. Like, it's not because of the timbre. It's not like
Yeah, it's all about being in the same range where like those strong winds and string, they can all play like kind of the same general pitch range, and it sounds good.
I think you're onto something, because a lot of the times like the strings might be used to do something like or something that is like not on the same textural level. I think maybe what we're hearing is the counterpoint or something. Like we're hearing like they're like two battling sides, not battling, but two groups of people two instrument groups. Yeah. Okay. What you're saying about them being in the same range too, or, a relatively similar range, also strikes me as potentially what I'm hearing. By the way, it just occurred to me that a lot of people know what the Elgar variations are because of Nimrod, which is the most famous of the Elgar variations. And so this was a set of pieces, or like a piece with a lot of mini pieces. I don't know. Variations. That's why they're called variations. Hello. It's a piece with a lot of variations, and Nimrod, which it goes like this. I'll play you a snippet of Nimrod, is the one that is most famous. It's used in a lot of movies. And so even something in the harmonies, even something in the notes, the melodies, even though this is slower, does remind me of this cue from Solo.
Yeah, there's something, I think it has a little bit to do with the heartfeltness of it. It's something about trying to pull in the heart. I'm not hearing the big intervals are the only thing that I'm not hearing
in Solo,
in the Star Wars in Solo, but the effect of the melody sweeping along, I definitely hear that. I think that connection is on point.
Okay, I'm gonna play it without all the talking and everything in case. Yeah, let's just do that. Okay, so I'm gonna play that from the track Oksana Florin yada yada yada, and I'm gonna start here. Okay, I am hearing the big interval leaps, but I'm hearing.
Oh,
Did you
they're
hear?
absolutely there. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that with all the other stuff going on, my ear wasn't believing whether or not it was really doing that, or whether it was, just part of the overall effect of the spaceships taking off and things. But it's absolutely there, that sweeping melody leaping up and then kind of flowing down, very oceanic.
Mm.
Um, and and it also strikes me that you mentioned Elgar variations specifically, because wasn't there a component in the Elgar variations that he was sort of composing pieces really like a kind of about people he knew,
Yes.
or like encapsulating personalities? And
Mm-hmm.
I think that that really relates to Star Wars, in particular things like Solo, because it's a movie just trying to encapsulate something about this character. And a lot of and Star Wars has such a variety of plots and narratives and places and things, but the only thing that I think is easy to remember with Star Wars is there are certain key characters, and they really get these nice pictures about them, that being Solo, or Obi-Wan, or just in general Skywalker. Um,
That's
and
so true.
so I
Yeah,
see that connection there with
that is so
Elgar.
that is so true, because like Star Wars is, the leitmotifs, the little the little signature sound samples that indicate, certain characters or themes. Yeah, Elgar Variations is very fitting, is a fitting comparison. Yeah, like I think one of them is even about his dog or something. Like each of the variations is about like one of his friends, like you said, or someone he knows. Um,
Yeah, surely.
yeah. So that was fun. Let's go back to where we were in the minutes. All right. So at this point, what's happening? Okay. Okay. Well, now we're starting to see the Pykes walking toward them, and Qi'ra and the gang are walking out of the ship, and that's what's happening. And they're in their disguise, of course. And Kira's pretending to be Oksana Florin, which we will hear all about in just a second.
Oh, good.
That's the fakery motif. Now they're walking out.
Won't be for long.
Shut up, the both of you.
I am Oksana Florin, Deputy Assistant Administrator to the Vice Admiral of the Federation of Trade Route Allocation and Monetization. Here with an offer from His Eminence, the Senior Vice Admiral. Your spice, for our hard-working slaves, I brought you a sample.
So the music is pretty background.
It is. I would definitely like to hear it, if it's possible, without the text and things. That would be awesome.
It is possible. We can do that. Let's do it. All right. All right, Qi'ra and the gang are walking out of the ship. I am Oksana Florin, Deputy Assistant Administrator. So you can tell, like, the music is leaving space for the dialogue here. So there's like the repetitive like bass line happening with these little spurts, these little interstitial spurts of stuff that sound almost like rebel fanfare, like sort of, Yeah,
it definitely is like a beat that's going onward, which I typically associate with the Empire, and then spurts of something trying to come out, which I do associate with rebel themes.
I like how you said that, like spurts of something wanting to come out. Yeah.
Yeah, but it can't because they're in disguise.
Yeah, that's a good way of phrasing that. First, did you notice those like half steps that are almost Jaws like?
Oh. Yep.
I mean,
Right then,
it's funny.
yeah, I made a point about writing something about suspense building right there. It definitely builds suspense and makes you want to kind of hold your breath a little and really pay attention to her. It also really focuses in on I am Oksana Florin.
Yeah, I think her dialogue there, which is sort of the way that it sounds, which is hilariously written, I think, the route allocation and monetization that just gets me. Like it's so funny to me for some reason. Like the way it rhymes, like it just sounds like bullshit because it is. But
It does.
But like it sounds like purposely like I am trade monetization, allocation, harmonization. Like
Yeah. Oh yeah. Totally. Yeah, it is making a nice comment about the bullshit nature of diplomacy around the Trade Federation.
yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure.
And she plays it off really
and it also
funny.
reminds me of like as soon as she walked out and she's wearing that cape, like that bright red cape with the black top, and I was like, why did she pick that cape? And then I was like, oh, it's to fit into this role. Like out of all the ones in Hondo's closet, how is that what she came up with?
Lando's closet?
Lando's closet.
That's funny.
Lando's closet. Yeah.
Lando, I'm sure maybe Hondo has some capes too.
They might. They're dirty though.
So here is so in the scene, this is when L3 also jumps in and L3 is about to say, Director Tolsite said our slaves should follow these guys to get clipped and tagged. And let's go back to the minutes themselves to hear that.
Yeah.
All right. Gotta love that.
Those are the best sounds, yeah.
Yeah.
Director Tolsite said our slaves should follow those guys to get clipped and tagged.
What are they clipping?
He wants us to follow him.
L3's great.
Yes.
That's for that stunt you pulled earlier, you degenerate scum.
So the music hasn't changed all that much. We're still kind of on the same. So Han opens his fist here. You see the chance cubes.
And the sparkling music for the little cubes.
Yep. That's where we hear the main theme. Do, 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 do. With the Jaws music underneath, which is super low. So it's an interesting juxtaposition. Let's hear that again. I'll scoot back a little bit more. So he's opening the chance cubes, which is obviously his dice. So he's opening his fist. We see his chance cubes looking all shiny. The main theme sounds like it's being played on a toy piano or a music box or celeste or something like that. While this very ominous Jaws-esque half-step thing happens underneath. So that's...
Yeah, I see. I see that being kind of related to how this is. I mean, this whole movie is basically a love story between Qi'ra and Han Solo, but we know that Han Solo ends up with Princess Leia later on, and so it's kind of interesting that maybe it is kind of making a musical point that while this is a cute love story and we're excited that she actually held on to his precious treasure and that's so cute, actually they're not meant to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember your experience watching this?
She's dark, and she's like working for Darth Maul.
Yeah, that's true.
That too. Yeah, I thought it was really cute, but the whole time, yeah, it did feel kind of like detaching from reality to be feeling like, oh, I really want them to end up together, and they're so great for each other, and then remembering, but no, I don't, because Princess Leia also needs Han Solo to end up with her. So
did you find it hard? I guess you kind of answered the question of finding it kind of hard to, I don't know, not take it seriously, but get too invested. Just because you know it's not going to turn out well. So you're just waiting for like, okay, in what way is this not going to work out? In what way
Totally.
is... Yeah.
Yeah, it asked a lot of me as a believer to just kind of say, okay, I am gonna be all in this story.
Yeah. I think that's always going to happen with prequels, but I feel like, I don't know, there must be, or maybe there's not, there must be ways to create like plots within plots that still do have some air of mystery as to how they turn out. Like, even if we know how vaguely like plot points of a person's life end up, there's got to be lots of subplots that are still a surprise. But this isn't one of them.
Yeah, you know what would be interesting though would be if Princess Leia, Qi'ra, and Han Solo are in the same room at some point later on, and we get to see what that's like. That would be interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
How does he deal with it?
It's probably happened in comics somewhere. Wait, has it? Let me think of timelines. I'm not sure. Wait, I'm not sure if it's happened in comics. I know Qi'ra is definitely in comics, but okay, so back to the matter at hand. We have this cute Chance Cubes moment, which on Star Wars Minute podcast, they've been pointing out all the times that the Chance Cubes show up in this movie, which is a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a major theme almost.
Yeah. And here, now we are in the control room, and let's listen to what's going on in Tolsight's control room.
It says all systems in this sector of the facility operate out of this room. It's how they are able to maintain control over so many with so few. The director says their reconditioning process is excruciating, but effective.
That sound is Tolsight speaking. Han Solo theme. And now here, something's about to happen.
He said your security attaché can wait there. Surely we don't need him to negotiate.
Wait there, Tool. Try not to bother anyone.
Okay, so that's a little of a stopping point. What do you make of that?
There's a lot going on there. I have a few questions along the way about like wanting to zoom in and hear what's really going on with some of those lines. My overall take about it is though that continuing that feeling of like there being some consistency, that being the Emperor and or bad people, and the rebellion things wanting to come out, trying to spurt out but not being able to. But basically I see that leading up to the plot is about to unravel, and Chewie and Hans are gonna shoot everybody in the everybody's gonna start breaking free of their disguises, and it's basically building up to that, I think, right now, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, there were a lot of little moments in there that I'm like wondering what was really going on.
Yeah, let's listen
in the music. Yeah.
Okay. So now we're listening back to Oksana Florin, Yada Yada Yada, from the deluxe edition of the soundtrack. Okay. I went back a little bit far. So here's the Chance Cubes. So we have the... Oh, I heard that harp thing that I didn't hear before. This pulse is like odd. Okay, so it's like a little bit of a modal harmony. Han Solo theme on a woodwind. There's the militaristic in the background. Surely we don't need him to negotiate. Wait here, Tool. Try not to bother anyone. like a calm before the storm or something.
It is like a calm before the storm, and then I feel like it's also this kind of just trying to create drama of like, oh, is he gonna create problems? Like, is she really trustworthy? Is he really trustworthy? Who's really trustworthy? Um,
Yeah, I want to
with
point
that
out
breath of
the
silence.
leading up to that silence, like I noticed this really delicate like string contrary motion. This it's a little bit before that. And contrary motion just means when two lines are moving in opposite directions.
Hmm.
Think of chopsticks, basically, right? I think that counts. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Okay. So they're on here. It's kind of soft, but they're here. And then half of the strings go up here to an E, and half the strings. It's hard to play and talk at the same time. Okay. Half of the strings go down to a C sharp. So then you have this. Okay, whatever. This isn't working out very well for me. There we go. Okay. There we go. There we go. That's what it is. So one line is moving up, literally. So ascending, and the other line is descending. So that's why it's called contrary motion, because they're moving they're getting further apart. It would also be contrary motion if it were going together. But it's sort of like, I don't know, it's a very, when I hear isolated lines in moving in contrary motion so clearly like that, it's pretty evocative for me for some reason. It feels like it feels like ripping string cheese apart. Things are just moving.
It is. And what's nice about this particular contrary motion line is it has that nice kind of cadence at the end, almost like they were meant to be pulled apart.
Yeah. Yeah, this particular tritone often resolves itself to that. Shout out to anyone who went to music school and has had to do voice leading stuff. So it goes like this, and then the top voice resolves down. So even though it resolves to kind of here, then it goes back down to here to a perfect fifth. So that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
there.
so I'm hearing a little eyebrow raise at that. So yeah, I think it's like it resolved and then a little eyebrow raise. That's gonna happen next.
I like it. Okay. Contrary motion. Resolve. Eyebrow raised. That's what that was. Nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're back after the break.
Yeah.
Where it just suddenly, that.
Yeah.
Where it just, you think it's over, and then it does the quick rip. And rip is a technical term. It's really not. It's that. Now we're clearly into something else. Young Han Solo. It's really some nice orchestration.
Yeah, is that actually a kind of young Han Solo theme or motif, or is it?
Yeah.
Cool. So there's basically a young Han Solo and a.
There is no old.
Han Solo.
There is no middle-aged Han Solo theme.
I won't call him old.
So John Powell wrote most of the score, but John Williams wrote just Han Solo's young themes.
Okay, nice.
So he wrote 3 themes for young Han. One is and then, which is what we just heard, and then one of them is. It's kind of his searching variant. And then there's another version of that, which is like, or no, it's like, So people listening to the podcast probably know that when the episode is about to wrap up, the music that comes on is the searching variant. So you'll hear it. You won't hear it because it happens in post-production, but listeners listening to this, you'll start to hear it toward the end of the episode when the music starts coming in. That's the searching variant. And then you'll hear the young Han Solo theme, or the heroic version. But yeah, so similar to how, like in A New Hope, Luke Skywalker's theme, aka the main theme, would sometimes be inserted in woodwinds. It's just kind of a little drop in. Han Solo's theme seemed to do that here too. We'll kind of be thrown in there.
Yeah, it did. There were more wins in this section too, right? Was am I mistaken about that? Did I really hear that?
Like in
more wins than previously in the 5 minutes.
Like after the rip or before the rip? After the contrary motion?
Oh, maybe just to do with after contrary motion.
Maybe it was just the rip.
Wins? Yeah, it was probably just the rip actually. But nonetheless, that's more.
It is. You can't argue with that. Let's listen to the rip again.
And what's going on?
Well, you're. So, droid.
Nice.
So there's bassoon.
That was the uniform that would have fit me perfectly.
He's talking about
fine.
Stormtrooper uniform. I love that droid sound.
That's a good one.
Do you mind holding this for me?
Whoa.
And that's the end of that track. Not the end of the minutes, but that's the end of Oksana Flora and yada, yada, yada. And it sounds, as you could probably hear, there's just a lot going on. There's a lot of people being smashed, a lot of things going pew pew, a lot of droids getting hit. There's TV crackling. There's that droid going.
Multiple species communicating and all different timbres and tones, and that droid was really good. I actually hadn't noticed that droid until just now, and has a very pleasing.
It does.
Little way of talking, and I could kind of understand it too, which was also nice.
Well, what do you think it was saying?
It was.
Let's hear it again.
So far, because I remember.
Okay, let's hear it again because I feel like I can kind of understand it too.
You want this?
I like it.
That's what I thought it said. I thought it said, "Do you like it?" or something.
It's cute. It's cute. That's what it is. It's like a cute little droid sound.
And I like how it's glitchy. It, like it's just pleasing. It doesn't sound like you could have a full conversation with that droid. Like it sounds like that something is unique about that droid voice. Like it's not built to be like L3. It's communicating.
No. That's the kind of droid that like you're on an elevator with and you're like, haha, I was just on the elevator with that one droid and it like was telling me something about.
Do you like it?
It was asking me again if I like it. I'm like, sure.
That's really funny. I wonder what it's meant to be saying. And I wonder if it was recorded like with someone saying something, but just like through lots of modulation, sort of like Chopper in the Rebels series, I feel like is often, I think that was recorded. I don't actually know for a fact, but I think that was recorded with someone saying lines, cursing, and it being changed.
Oh, that's great. I would love to be the voice of Chopper. That'd be awesome. But yeah, for this, I kind of get the feeling that it could totally be almost like the recording engineer being like, "Do you like that take?" And then they just kept it in, and then they modulate, and
they're like, "Let's play around with this." If you went to Kellogg, you could do that and probably just turn it in for like a final project.
Oh, totally, totally.
um, okay, so wait, just curious, what at CalArts you were a composition major, right?
Yes, I was.
Like
hmm
pure
yeah, I
pure
got my master's.
pure composition.
Pure composition, not performer composer.
Right.
I'm definitely more of a background scenes person,
Okay.
trying to bring a variety of music and sounds, and but also the visuals are really important to me. So
Right. Right. Yes. I definitely did perform in one of your things.
yes,
I performed in the T.S. Eliot thing.
yay! That was really good. I just have been working on the visual art for that, re-releasing it, and I'm going to sell the graphic score.
Ooh, very cool. Oh yeah.
Yeah, so
Is
I'm
there
excited.
I'll ask you at the end of the episode, but I'm it would be cool. Yeah. So anyway, that's why we weren't in seminar together probably, because I was a
That is.
performer slash composer, composer slash performer. So they separated us for some reason.
Yeah, maybe just because the programs were both so large. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so here we are. Oh, what I meant to ask was, did you have any experience with doing the music tech stuff? Yeah.
I did. Yeah,
Nice.
absolutely.
Nice.
I learned most of my music tech beginnings at CalArts. Before CalArts, I had kind of dabbled and done some kind of funny little things where I was trying to figure out how to do music tech. But CalArts opened so many doors for what could be possible, and that was really
Yeah.
awesome. Did you?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Nice.
Yes. Did you have any idea what types of sound treatment, I guess you could call it, like is on these droids? Or if not treatment,
Yeah,
like
my
yeah.
vocabulary about that is definitely going to be pretty random in terms of like if I've had to use that type of treatment for a project, then I would know about it. But then if I hadn't had to use whatever effect it was, then I would not know about it. But
Like I'm trying to think of like, so a lot of what composers do is figuring out a way to convey instructions to the performer for something that they're conceiving of. And so, depending on the composer, sometimes it is like very strict and exact. Like if you're composing for a film and there's not really that much room for interpretation, this is what it must sound like. And then on the other, like completely other end, there's like graphic scores and there's, the types of things where the composer is committed to the concept and the exact execution isn't as much of an issue in communication. But still, I mean, there are times as composers where we want something to sound a certain way or at least have certain qualities, and figuring out how to give instructions for that via notation can be a challenge. It can be like definitely something, I don't know, I think about it sometimes when I hear things and I'm like, I wonder what the music looked like for that.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think about that in terms
Absolutely.
of voice too. Like what if this were like a radio drama and someone had to do droid voices and it wasn't just based on like imitating a recording, but there were instructions. Anyway, I'm getting into
totally.
yeah.
No, like I actually have so I keep my vault of paper to use and cut up right next to me, which includes photocopies of graphic scores that I've made. And the reason that a composer might use a graphic score would be that if you're doing something for voice or something where the effect is what you need, and there's so many different ways that a performer could get that effect, but not every performer is the same. You can't just assume that every performer can do the same strange vocal technique, or that every electronic musician, for example, I'm a little bit illiterate when it comes to the details of what's going on with the music tech, right? So you don't want me writing a specific graphic score saying, change this parameter here and this parameter here, because you're going to be annoyed that I did not choose the most effective way to create the sound I want. So what I would often do, like, for example, for that droid, like how would I write a score to get that droid sound? Like I would definitely do something that had like lots of little grainy things
Mm.
going on, like lots of little components. But like it reminds me of like sometimes for a graphic score I'll do something like lots of little, but like I don't like that texture. Like just trying to get this like
Oh.
metallic texture, and then I'll put music over that,
Mm-hmm.
or like some kind of instructions over that. But it's nice to have like okay, but like the goal is to try to sound like metallic and with little black lines, and but not like, and that might be compared to something pretty, and so then yeah, it has to, it's like a visual interpretation and how that could be taken into musical interpretation. Yeah.
I love that. And I think so if I were writing a score and I wanted, say a vocalist to imitate something like that droid, I think certainly like music, like transcribing like pitches, for example, wouldn't be it. And
Mhm.
I feel like maybe I would lean into either something visual, like maybe I think I would draw like lines or like a kind of a graph kind of showing like the volatility of the voice, like kind of how it goes like up and down in a short span. Because even if people have different voices, they can within their own range kind of go to whatever
Yeah.
specifics work for them. And I don't know, maybe instructions on something about where to put how to position their mouth, or maybe like in a
Hmm.
different case, maybe plug their nose or something like.
Yeah, I hear like a lot of flatness in how it is, like it's not
Mm,
it's like it's a flat thing, so some kind of indication about your mouth cavity is
yeah.
going to be flatter and not very open. And I like that about the yeah, plug
Yeah.
nose
Plug
plus flat
nose.
mouth. We're getting closer, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you like
I think we're getting closer. This is a very important side discussion,
Oh,
clearly.
it is. It is
Um,
vital.
yeah, I mean, it is. It is. It is. We don't need to qualify it. Because it's so easy. It is so easy to make music straight directly from your brain to the computer or to the instrument, without stopping to wonder how you would communicate that if it weren't you doing it. And I think it's just always an interesting exercise to consider, especially when I think about things like not only performance practice, but how musical instructions can be transmitted to future generations. Um, I don't know. It's just all these thoughts.
Absolutely. I mean, well, we look at all of the music from back in the day, and we're not 100% sure what they actually did when they saw those things on
Yep.
paper. And so the same thing could very easily happen to us in the future, where they're saying, okay, we see these lines and these circles and things, but we don't know, and who knows which languages will persist into the future, and so much of musical notation is just words describing
Mm,
what to do, or the names of instruments even.
hmm.
um yeah, I like thinking of it that way, and I think that's also relevant to the whole Star Wars thing, because Star Wars spans so many generations that in part of the Star Wars universe, people like think that Jedi are these legendary, non-existent mythological beings that never had any relevance really, and they don't think there's any possibility they would see them. Whereas several generations prior to that, we it's all about the Jedi. Everyone knows about them. There's no
Hmm.
like confusion about what a Jedi is, or what's going on with them.
Totally.
And so that's very relevant to be thinking about how to, like that's kind of like why sometimes you can like sci-fi. It's like, so it allows you to kind of tap into this line of thought about what are we going to be like 100,000 years from now. What are
Yeah.
people gonna think? Yeah.
And so much of our present is thinking about the future and the past, which is
Hmm.
wow. Okay. So we're in this. So we've ended this track of Oksana Florin, yada yada yada. Hilarious name. And now we are about to start the track called Mind Mission. On the deluxe version of the soundtrack, it's also called Extra Deluxe Mind Mission, but they start the same way. And let's listen to it in the context of the minutes first. We're still finishing up the previous one.
Whoa.
And Qi'ra just did Terrace
I have
Kasi.
never seen anyone do. What was that?
Terrace Kasi. Dryden taught me.
Ah, well negotiated.
So now we start this bass line.
And all of that timing was like about humor, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a good point. Because we're learning in a very short time span that like we're seeing Qi'ra kill someone in a way that L3 has never seen before. So it's some extreme specialized move, and Dryden taught her, which is like, so I think it just like fills out like, oh, Qi'ra is like really in it with Dryden, like actually doing stuff like this.
Yeah, like for him to have taught a martial art to her must mean
a fatal martial art.
She's essentially a protege. She essentially can never get away from him unless his life were to end.
Yeah.
No spoilers. But yeah, I think that section was totally about humor. There's also a little bit of flair. Like I really remember with the shot of her completing the murder was was like through a window, and all you really see is like her cape flourishing in interesting ways. And that's really all you see. And then it's that humor of L3 being like, whoa, I've never seen that before. And then I think somebody else says whoa about something else right then.
And Dryden's like, well negotiated.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all about that humor and that timing. But we do get a big difference from the previous things that we've heard is a lot of effects in the orchestra doing just kind of like in the strings, I think, and some more like fluttery, suspensey kind of things that are less melodic and more purely effect driven.
Oh, okay, wait. Let's listen to some of that. Okay, so this is... Oh, like that? Oh, I didn't hear that. Those drums. Oh, okay.
It's like a little more of that like fluttering to create the effect, the tremolo. Was that a string tremolo?
It was like, I think it was like a trill or something.
Like more of a trill than a tremolo, yeah. Yeah, totally. And just kind of...
Here, wait. Yeah, trill. And then hits. And
I wouldn't call that melodic. I would call that like building up the chord.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good way to, laying down the different, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like these are the best notes to get to where we're going.
Yeah, exactly.
It's functional, not
Yeah, functional, not. Yep, don't know what.
Yeah, we're afraid to say what it's not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
functional,
you don't want to, like,
not beautiful. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
It's functional, not just pure aesthetics. And it leaves like space for the various lines where it's like, and those drums really come in hard there. Boop, 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 boop. And then it ends. I mean, I think the button ending on it, like the sforzando, a lot of cues kind of fade out or maybe fade into something else, but this one is a very defined ending. Yeah. At least dynamics wise, volume wise. And then the beginning of
Yeah.
Mind Mission. Oh, did I cut you off?
Well, I was also just gonna say, and basically also just saying like, yay, like part one of our plan that has to be perfectly executed. Check. Like we did
Executed.
that perfectly.
Literally.
Yeah, murder complete.
Yes.
And then to the Mind Mission. Yes.
Yes. Murder complete is going to go down as a Christina Ward quote. So Mind Mission starts, and I think it's about probably their next mission, which is about the mind. Okay. So we're back to, it almost sounds hopeful. It's like a little preamble here. I like that. That
curious, hopeful.
Yeah, that's a good, yeah. And the flute's like, and the beat isn't like the pulse. I guess I don't mean beat as in literally, it leaves space. It's like the drums kind of, the snares are there, but they don't just go like 1, 2, 3. They go like 1, hold, 1, hold.
Yeah, they're just creating a nice structure.
Yeah.
Which.
Yeah. And it's a little bit of a crescendo. Breath. And now we're starting. 2. And now this is where the beat gets very consistent. 2, 1, 2. Okay, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just about when the beat starts is where you're thinking?
Anywhere.
Anywhere. Yeah, I mean, it's effective. I like this. I like it being sort of the like we were saying, the drums just kind of create a little bit of space so that curiosity and that hopefulness can happen within the structure of a very of a slight, not a beat, but of a tempo, I guess. And but we're getting down to business now. This is the part where it really matters. That's what that steady drum situation tells me, is this is when we need to be on our game.
Yeah, this is when the droid rebellion is going to start.
Yes.
And the bass line, I feel like, is so memorable because it repeats so many times. I'm talking, of course, about or whatever. And then the different voices come in. It's very Baroque.
It is. You're right. It is very Baroque. And I wouldn't have thought that until you had actually played it on the keyboard there. Because, well, keyboards bring out any Baroque quality of anything,
it's true.
Really.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it doesn't sound Baroque, play it on the keyboard.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and it's a nice line. It's also got a lot of interest. It doesn't really. There's a lot of possibility with it. It kind of keeps that curiosity thing going on.
Yeah, it reminds me of a Bach invention, and it reminds me of like those movies where there are multiple things happening and it's kind of cross-cut. Is that what it's called? I can't remember what it's called. Different plot points happening at the same time, or like, different areas of the action and kind of moving between them. Yeah, this
Absolutely.
is like, it's like a very action-oriented cue, but not in a single-minded action, like we are gunning for this thing and this is our single-minded mission. It's more like action and like, all right, everyone in the scavenger hunt, go, and like we'll meet back when we're done type of action.
Right. Like it's like we know that everybody's all about action, but the point of view and the intention of each character is different. And that happens a lot in opera when there'll be multiple characters on stage and then they're each kind of singing different text, that's very contrapuntal typically, and typically interlaces with the other performers, but like they all have different wishes. It'll always be like a guy who wants to get the girl who wants to be with one of the guys, and the guy who doesn't want them to be together, or something like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, of course, there's a million reasons, but it is that I wish I could remember the specific word for that, the technical term for when those when different things are occurring on stage.
Like counterpoint?
And that's exactly what it is. Well, there's
Like
a
canon?
word for like when it's, I don't know.
Fugue?
It's a more like a dramatic term, like something. Perhaps I'll spend 15 seconds searching it, and if I can't find something immediately.
So I love that you brought that up because just coincidentally, I recorded this and the next episode out of order. So I recorded the episode that comes out where we actually continue the rest of that Mind Mission track before this, and we ended up talking about the counterpoint aspect of it, but I didn't come upon whatever term you're thinking of with regard to opera because. So anyway, listeners, this is a spoiler for next week, but it's not really because we get into it more. And the music, like we get the rest of the track next week. So still listen to next week for sure. But this is coming from a different perspective because next week's guest comes from a different type of musical background. Well, she's not a musician, and had like had this lens like where she was I don't want to spoil next week. You'll just listen to next week's episode because she's the one that brought in the stage aspect of it. Anyway, just listen to next week.
Absolutely. And the term we're looking for is something in between staging and dramatic cue. It's just like when you see this in the score, you're like, oh, okay, it's 3 characters all singing about something different, but at the same time.
Yeah.
And in this case, it's 3 characters all trying to complete this mission, or 3, I just picked 3, but groups of people trying to do different things at the same time.
Yeah.
And of course, cinematically, Yeah. But that drum beat kind of keeps it all together. Like they're all about action. Nobody's about just chilling.
Yeah, no one is chilling here except maybe Lando, but we'll get to that. Get to that
Lando,
later.
And maybe that droid who just wants to know if people
like it.
If people like it.
Do you like it? Yeah, I bet there's some listeners who maybe have like a better droid ear who like actually know what that droid is saying. If you know what that droid is saying, or you have like a different guess, I would love to know. Let us know.
Me too.
Yeah. So we're almost at the end of the minute, so maybe we'll just finish out listening. Lots of grunts.
Excuse me, I need to use this terminal. Hello? Can you hear me? Oh. Restraining bolts. Barbaric. Congratulations, you're liberated.
It's that squirrely. There you go. That's the end. She liberates the droid, and so glad that the final moment of these minutes is a liberation. Ending on a good note.
It really is, and that it's totally like shall we say, a foreshadowing of everything that's going to come. Like the next couple things that happen is just like liberation. Shall I like delineate which liberations I'm talking about
sure.
specifically?
Yeah,
cool. yeah. I mean, like there's this one. What was it called? Binding chip. Binding.
I don't know. Okay. Yeah.
The
restraining
one
bolt.
Restraining bolt. Yes, that she takes off the droid, and then the next thing we see a couple minutes later is that droid then just going around like a candy shop, taking everybody's bolts off.
Yeah.
And then we see the droid, and like it's amazing. And then we see the prisoners or like the slaves getting like the panels are doing all sorts of things. I think there's a point where a droid actually just goes freedom and clicks like a big green button. And then the slaves are really, and then the Wookiees get found. Chewbacca gets to find his Wookiees that were enslaved previously. That's so good. And so the freedom thing is kind of building up here, and then of course they're going to, I guess, liberate the coaxium from. That's a different kind
Nice.
of liberate though. And then
Yeah.
and then there's, I guess, like L3 getting liberated from her
her body?
That's another.
That's
Yeah,
a way to phrase that. Yeah.
That's a way to say it.
Um,
Yeah, which is key. I mean, like the Empire, like could never succeed if they didn't just have really clever ways to phrase things. They're
that's
like,
true.
"Hey, the Empire, explore, see new places."
Oh, that's so true. It's almost like they should put that in a propaganda ad. Yeah, so we are at the end of the minutes. Is there anything about either of these minutes in particular or solo music and sound in general that we didn't get to talk about?
The only thing we kind of talked about it, but we just mentioned how many grunts there are in these 5 minutes. There's a lot of grunting. Like that was my first impression of the soundtrack, was that it's almost a soundtrack of grunts at various times. Like so much grunting in these 5 minutes, just because of the specific species that are talking in their grunting languages.
That's really funny. It's funny that you mentioned that because I think the sound design in general, a lot of people have commented, well, myself included, that sometimes it feels a little bit disembodied, or it feels a little bit like it's coming from all over the place sometimes. And Pete on Star Wars Minute talks about that too. But sometimes I feel like I'm not even sure where, if it's coming out, convincingly coming out of a particular character. But anyway, the grunts are funny. I don't like or dislike them, but it is something that I noticed too. Just there's a lot of grunting.
There is. It's good though. It's definitely no.
Reminds us of the
no
struggle.
problem.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we have hit on a lot of it. I'm checking out my notes. Oh, the only thing that I forgot to mention earlier that I liked from this was when the guy who's running the Kessel mines, when he is talking about how he says everything is maintained from this control room. That's how we maintain control over so many with so few. And that's just a good moment because I think that's a good theme in the context of the whole imperialism thing in the first place.
Yeah,
and I
absolutely.
think and so I think that's just them being a little more on the nose than they sometimes are, just kind of talking about that theme.
Oh, that is very true. It's like a very literal line, but also it says so much. Actually, I think, yeah, it's toll site. It's how they're able to maintain control over so many with so few. I feel like that's also like a hint of like, well, they're controlling so many with so few. So that kind of tells, Qi'ra and Han and them that there aren't that many of them to take out, number one. And if they get the workers basically on their side, then they'll be wildly outnumbered if they can, power to the people.
That's a great way to interpret that, especially given how, if Qi'ra is about to go visit Darth Maul, and she knows this special martial art that Dryden taught her, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities there, if she were to change her point of view.
Yeah. As always, Star Wars gives us quite a lot to think about if we let it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the key. So the themes that were in this set of minutes were the gang, fakery, the main theme, basically like the Star Wars main theme, the young Han Solo theme, heroic version, and L3's theme. And on the soundtrack, we are on Oksana Florin, Yada Yada Yada, 4M30A, which is the Q name. And that's on the deluxe edition. And after that, it's Mind Mission or Extra Deluxe Mind Mission, 4M30B to 5M30C-31. Q names are just so smooth. They just roll off the tongue. Yeah. So, Christina, It is time for you to answer the Star Wars Music Minute questionnaire. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So this is the same 3 questions that I ask every guest. And question number 1 is, in exactly 3 words, what does Star Wars sound like?
Heartfelt, direct, and dramatic.
Oh,
Without the and. Heartfelt,
that's
direct,
fine.
dramatic.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Number 2, what is something related to Star Wars music or sound that you are curious about or want to learn more about?
Yeah, so mine, I took it really big picture for this answer. Is just I'm still always fascinated about the what are the thematic relationships, musically speaking, that tie the dark side with the imperialism. And I just think it'd be really cool to see kind of a portrait of the dark side as it relates to imperialism and as it relates to the empire or anything that becomes the empire. And then similarly, on the other side, a portrait of things that portray the light side of the force, as well as, I'm not sure that rebellion is the right word, but I think what it really is like individual goodness or just general goodness. The good people. I find that it would be kind of cool to see those two things talked about in I'm trying to avoid the word juxtaposition. And yeah, just like as opposed, I think it'd be nice to see a portrait of those two things.
What
So
do you mean by
in a way,
portrait?
that's a
I'm just
question.
curious.
And by portrait, I guess I mean just looking at every angle of those types of things. So it'd be nice to see, like, these are the themes associated with the dark side. These are the themes associated with the empire. Let's see how those relate to each other. And then also see maybe, and then kind of take that in from the musical into the plot and story world, where you can kind of get a picture of what the overall, I guess, like what the music says about the dark side and the imperialism.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
does that kind of make sense?
yeah, it kind of makes sense. So just for the record, the purpose of asking that question is not for me to give a direct answer, but I just want to make sure that you know of this resource, because I think you would find it helpful, nice to have, and listeners too. So of course, I'm talking about the complete catalog of the musical themes of Star Wars, which was created and is maintained up to date by Frank Lehman, who is a musicologist, film musicologist, John Williams scholar, former guest of the show. And he actually has like, has it. You just have to look at it. There, all the themes that he has detected from the movies, like it's pages of them. It's like hundreds, including like incidental motifs. And I think the part that you'll find interesting, Christina in particular, is toward the end of the catalog in the appendix, there's a section on associative progressions, and he has identified like 9 main chord progressions that are associated with different things. So like one set of chords is like tends to be associated with evil and like, or deception or heroism, and then he'll put examples of which themes fit into that. So I think that's just that's a starting point for thinking about it further. It's obviously not the definitive like answer, because this type of question will never have a definitive answer, but it's an interesting starting point.
Absolutely. And it kind of makes me think of the Elgar variations again, where what I'm really getting at is what is the personality of those themes. And so it'd be interesting to imagine like dividing the Elgar variations into 2 personality groups. Is that possible? Do they all fit into dark side or light side? And I find that interesting. So I am absolutely going to check out the associative progression.
I think it's hilarious that you're literally taking notes. I love it. Okay, so question number 3 is, what is a score or soundtrack that you're fond of besides anything Star Wars?
Yeah, I'm gonna draw directly on something that Okay. So I'm going to talk about Dune because I particularly love times when the soundtrack and the
Which Dune?
drama become one, and in a way, I'm referring to the more recent Dune, particularly the when he uses the magic voice. I don't know what
The
it's called.
Voice.
Like the voice. Yeah. When he uses the voice, and it just like there's a really long period of time where the soundtrack is cueing you into the fact that the voice is being used, and it's kind of like the really low, deep rumble of the sound wave has begun, but you can't even hear it yet. And I just love the way that Dune, like, in order to do that as a movie, it has to somehow connect the soundtrack with the sound design, to connect his voice to what was going on previously that was not his voice. And I really like that. It's not exactly breaking the fourth wall, but it is sort of breaking a barrier between sound design and soundtrack and forcing them to really connect to each other. And I find that
Yeah.
really fascinating. And I have not read any of Dune, so I don't know how much he's going to be using the voice in the future, but hopefully a lot, so that I get to have many more opportunities to hear the voice
Yeah.
do that.
Oh, that's a particularly interesting example because when people talk about sound design and score being sort of mixed, I think normally that's not necessarily the thing people are thinking of. I think it's normally like there's lots of hits there's lots of hits in the music or sort of overt things that might be obvious as sound effects where you can't really tell if it's a sound effect from the movie or from the sound from the from the sound design
Yeah.
itself or the musical score. But what you're talking about, it sounds like, is literally like the moment where almost the torch is passed from score to sound design with the voice. Because so for those who haven't seen Dune, there's like the voice is this this I don't know, the voice is this way of speaking that's very like, I don't know, commanding, harsh, rumbly. It's a very distinct sound it's a very distinct way that the characters talk. It's a very specific timbre that is like evoked, like a very specific sound quality that occurs. And I guess I have to revisit this part of the movie because I don't really remember that. But when sound waves are really, really like the bigger the sound wave, it lower pitched, right?
Yeah, lower pitch, big sound wave, so big that you actually can't hear it at first. Kind
Yeah,
of like when an earthquake is going to happen. And
exactly.
there's this feeling of rumble. And I feel like in Dune they kind of capture that. And it's not that I can do the Dune voice, but basically what he does is he's like, pass me the water.
Oh, that was pretty good.
And what you have to do that is like just create way more space in your throat.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just really interesting. I love how you phrased that, pass the torch. That's perfect. It's like they have to pass the torch between each other to
Yeah.
become one.
Well, now I have a new appreciation for that that part of the film. Wow, it's been fascinating talking to you, Christina. Thank you for coming on Star Wars Music Minute.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been so much fun. I took some notes that I'll be looking at.
I know,
and,
which is
and this has been so much fun. Thank you.
where can people find you or your work online?
Yeah, I have, right now I'm in the building stages of everything to do with finding my work, but I have an Instagram account, which I've been using lately, especially to work on visual art, specifically the T.S. Eliot project that Xanthi and I worked on a long time ago is like all over my Instagram right now. That's pretty
So
much
what's
all
your
you see when you
Instagram?
go there. And that is, I'm just gonna
Looking
read
it up.
directly from Instagram because I get it wrong half the time. Okay,
Oh.
it is so it is kind of like my name,
Uh-huh.
Xtina,
Like
but
Xanthi. That's basically.
yeah, but it looks like XT Nastina because of how I spell it, and I find that funny. So it's XTNAAA. Stina, kind of like Christina, Xtina, but with several A's. So XTNAAASTINA.
I'll put a link in the show notes.
This is why I read it from the. You can get that wrong in a million ways.
Yeah. That's funny. Anywhere else, or is that the main place?
So from there, you can get to a sci-fi project that I'm working on, where I have this kind of alien lizard humanoid creature that I basically role play as, and I've been working on some things where I make a soundtrack, and I've been trying to be a better performer by singing a little bit, and getting my electronic game, recording some MIDI keyboard, and mixing it in Ableton, and
awesome.
You can check that out at Kiwi Water Nymph. Which is linked from my Stina account.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah. Cal Larshins are quite a breed.
Yeah, I have trouble introducing myself every time. So thank you for doing it eloquently for me, so that all I had to do was say where to find me.
And listeners, you can find Star Wars Music Minute on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and Twitter, and or StarWarsMusicMinute.com should have all the links. You can also leave a voice message at StarWarsMusicMinute.com/comlink, and I might play it on the show. You can become a patron. Link in the show notes. You can tell us what you think that droid is saying. You know the one, and you can. You can just make a YouTube comment or tweet me or anything like that. This has been such a pleasure. Next week, we'll be talking about minutes 76 through 80. We're over halfway through Solo, A Star Wars Story, which is kind of amazing. And with that, may the Force be with you, and talk to you next week on Star Wars Music Minute.